I knew something was wrong the moment Madison placed the plate in front of me. Everyone else at the table was cutting into thick, beautifully seared steaks that still sizzled against their porcelain dishes. My plate held a single slice of meat curled stiff at the edges, gray, lifeless, as if it had been rescued from the back of a forgotten refrigerator. No one looked at me, not even long enough to pretend. I sat at the far end of the long glass table, a late addition to a dinner that clearly had been planned without me. An extra chair pushed in after the settings were arranged. No matching napkin, no wine poured, just space barely wide enough for my elbows. I lifted my fork slowly. The meat was cold, tougher than necessary, but it was never about the food. At 73, I have learned that disrespect rarely comes in shouts. It arrives quietly, in small omissions, in seating arrangements, in plates of leftovers served beside people slicing into luxuries you once helped them afford. Daniel laughed at something his wife said. His laugh used to fill rooms. Big, warm, unguarded. The laugh of a boy who once ran barefoot along the Santa Monica shore, calling for me to watch the waves chase him. Now his laughter was tightened, controlled, a performance meant for the people he wanted to impress. He barely glanced in my direction. Madison raised her glass of red wine and smiled at her guests, perfect hair gleaming under the pendant lights. She carried herself like a woman who believed beauty and charm could excuse the small cruelties she scattered through a room. She never asked how I was, only whether her hospitality might be disrupted by someone else's needs. "The seasoning is mild enough," I said softly. She did not respond. Voices drifted around me. Renovations to the house. A new weekend retreat in Napa they were considering. Upgrades to the children's education program. I knew without asking which quiet bank account had helped them reach each of those milestones. My name had lived in the background of their accomplishments for years. Only Lily, my granddaughter, looked at me with hesitation in her eyes, a slight, flickering concern. But Madison tapped her shoulder sharply, redirecting her attention. Even children learn quickly which expressions are allowed in a home like this. Dessert came late and elaborate. A glossy tart sliced for everyone else first. My piece arrived last, a thin, apologetic sliver placed wordlessly beside my water glass. When dinner ended, Daniel walked me to the front door, phone already in hand, attention pinned to another world. "Drive safe, Mom," he said, barely looking up. "I always do." The words came out calm, but I felt something shift deep inside, small but irreversible. Outside, the Los Angeles evening air was cooler than usual, soft against my face. My old sedan waited at the curb, steady as ever. When I sat inside, I looked back at their lit windows, glowing like indifferent eyes. That was the moment I knew my life was about to change. The drive home felt longer than usual, though the streets of my small Los Angeles neighborhood were quiet at that hour. Streetlights washed the pavement in pale gold, and my tires hummed softly against the asphalt. By the time I stepped into my house, the air inside greeted me with a silence that felt strangely comforting, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for me to stop pretending. I did not turn on the television or play music. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on, and sat at the table while the water heated. My hands rested on the wood, the same table where I once balanced budgets and calculated payrolls as a financial controller for a mid-sized logistics firm. Numbers used to obey me. They made sense. People did not. When I took my first sip of tea, memories seeped in with the steam. After Charles died, the house had felt too large and Daniel's grief too sharp for him to handle alone. I stepped in willingly, quietly. I paid his missed rent, I helped him clear the debts he had accumulated when he tried starting his first company. Later, I gave him the down payment for the Santa Monica house he now filled with modern art and curated dinner parties. They called it a loan, but no one ever mentioned repayment again. Then came private school tuition for Lily and her brother, a new family car when the old one broke down, a nanny for the months Madison said she could not possibly manage 2 children alone while Daniel focused on climbing the corporate ladder. I covered emergencies, holidays, unexpected bills, and even some expected ones. Every year I told myself the same thing. You help because you can. You give because love demands generosity. One day they will look back and understand. But people rarely look back. They only look at what remains available. I rose from the table and walked into the small room I used as an office. My binder was on the shelf where I always kept it, thick with statements and receipts from years of quiet giving. I opened it, letting the weight of it settle across my lap. Tuition payments? Mortgage drafts. Automatic transfers I had set up myself. All in my handwriting. All done out of love. But one document caught my eye. A printed email I had tucked beside the most recent statements. It was from Daniel, dated 2 weeks earlier, forwarded from an account I barely checked anymore. He had requested information about converting one of my investment portfolios into a joint access account. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. The words tightened something inside my chest. Not shock, not anger. Clarity. I was no longer being asked for help. I was being assumed. I closed the folder gently. The click of the latch echoed through the quiet room. Somewhere along the years, I had let myself disappear. Piece by piece, bill by bill, sacrifice by sacrifice. But tonight, for the first time, I saw the shape of my absence clearly, and I knew I could not continue living that way. By dawn, I was already dressed. Not because I had slept well, but because sleep had become unnecessary once clarity arrived. The sky over Los Angeles was still pale and quiet when I stepped outside, the kind of morning that felt suspended between night and truth. I locked the door behind me and drove toward the bank, my binder sitting beside me like a witness. I arrived 20 minutes before opening. The faint mist clinging to the glass storefront reminded me of mornings when Charles and I used to walk the pier before sunrise. Back then, dawn felt gentle. Now it felt purposeful. When the doors finally unlocked, I stepped inside, greeted by the sterile but familiar scent of paper, carpet cleaner, and cooled air. A young teller gave me a polite smile and directed me to the office of Sofia Morales, a senior banker I had met only once before, but had remembered clearly. She was sharp-eyed and unexpectedly warm, a rare combination. "Helen," she said, rising from her chair as I entered. "You are here early. How can I help you today?" I set the binder on her desk and folded my hands. "I need to make several changes to my accounts. Immediate changes." She opened the binder, scanning the documents with the practiced eye of someone who had seen too many families blur the line between love and exploitation. After a few minutes, she looked up. "These automatic payments," she said gently. "Many of them are tied to accounts that are not yours." I nodded. "I want all of them canceled, today." She hesitated only a second. "Of course, we can suspend them, then remove them entirely once the system processes the changes. And the shared credit cards." "Frozen," I said. "Every one of them." Her fingers moved across the keyboard with swift precision, the soft clicking like rain tapping against a window. As she typed, her brows furrowed slightly. "Helen, someone attempted to log into your investment account early this morning Around 5:42. Does that sound familiar? My breath stilled. 5:42. That was minutes before I left the house. I shook my head. No, it was not me. Sophia exhaled slowly, then rotated the screen so I could see the flagged attempt. It wasn't just a login. Someone had initiated a preliminary withdrawal request. Large enough to matter. Small enough not to trigger immediate intervention. A strange chill moved through my body, not fear, recognition. Freeze that too, I said, immediately. For the next half hour, we worked through every account. Transfers halted, permissions revoked, secondary signers removed, new security measures added. With each form I signed, something inside me settled. Not triumph, not anger, just certainty. When the final confirmation printed, Sophia slid it across the desk. This is all active now. Whatever happens next, you are financially protected. I thanked her, standing slowly. My knees ached, but the pain felt like an honest reminder that I was still here, still capable. Outside, the morning sun had finally broken through the mist, warming the pavement beneath my feet. I walked to my car, opened the door, and paused for a moment in the quiet. I had spent years believing I needed permission to reclaim my life. But today, for the first time, I acted without asking anyone. By the time I returned home, the sunlight had stretched across the neighborhood, bright and deceptive in its calm. I hung my coat, placed my binder on the counter, and had barely begun to boil water for tea when my phone vibrated across the table. Once, twice, then continuously, like a trapped insect against glass. I didn't need to check the screen to know the storm had begun. Across Los Angeles, somewhere between Santa Monica's polished offices and Madison's preferred wellness spa, the first credit card had failed. The messages piled in. Daniel. Mom, call me right now. Something is wrong. Daniel again. My business card was declined during lunch. I was in the middle of a presentation. This is humiliating. Then Madison, her tone sharp even through text. My card was declined at the spa. They made me step aside in front of everyone. Fix this immediately. I set the phone down without responding. Tea. I wanted tea. Warmth in a cup. A familiar, steadying ritual. The kettle hissed, and I poured the water slowly, letting the rising steam blur the edges of the room. But the calls grew louder, insistent. I silenced the phone and placed it face down. By noon, the chaos had escalated. I imagined Daniel's face, flushed with anger as clients stared, waiting for him to explain why his perfect image had cracked. Madison, standing at a counter dripping with eucalyptus oil, her curated life momentarily rejected by a machine. Humiliation. That was always the word they clung to. Never responsibility. Never gratitude. Around 1 o'clock, I heard a soft buzz from the phone. One new message. A different name. Lily. Grandma, are you okay? I felt something soften inside me. Her words were small, thoughtful, untouched by entitlement. I wrote back. I am fine, sweetheart. Are you? A minute passed. I'm okay. Dad and Mom are freaking out. They think the bank messed up. They're yelling a lot. That did not surprise me. Thank you for checking on me, I typed. You're the only one who has. She sent a heart. A simple gesture, but it felt like a thread of gentleness pulling me back from the noise. By 3, the noise arrived at my doorstep. I was in the living room folding laundry when I saw Daniel's car pull up hard against the curb. The engine cut abruptly, and the passenger door slammed with the force of someone who believed the world owed them calm. I stepped to the window, but didn't pull the curtain aside fully, enough to see. not enough to be seen. Daniel was pacing along the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear, voice raised in frustration. Madison remained inside the car, arms crossed, her expression tight with indignation. She gestured sharply at him, telling him what to say, what to demand. Neither walked toward my porch. Not yet. They stayed by the car, arguing, circling the same frantic sentences, as if volume might restore what entitlement had silently stolen. Then my phone buzzed again, vibrating against the wooden table. Madison, we are outside. Open the door. The tone wasn't concern, it was command. I did not move. Minutes passed. Voices grew louder, then footsteps approached the porch, knuckles rapped sharply against the door. Helen, this is ridiculous. Let us in. Their impatience seeped through the walls like smoke. I folded one last towel, placed it neatly on the stack, and carried my tea back to the chair by the window. Outside, their silhouettes shifted with frustration. Inside, for the first time in years, I felt entirely in control of my silence. I did not open the door. Bandanoi. The next morning arrived with a stillness that felt almost deliberate, as if the world were pausing long enough for me to decide what kind of woman I intended to be now. I dressed with care, smoothing the front of my blouse, fastening the small silver earrings Charles once gave me. Then I retrieved my binder and drove downtown to the law office I had visited only once since his death. Victor Hale's building was old brick, softened by decades of sun along the Los Angeles skyline. The wooden floors inside creaked like polite whispers as I made my way down the hallway. Victor himself rose when I entered, tall, quiet, his hair more silver than I remembered. Helen, he said warmly, it has been a while. What brings you in today? I placed the binder on his desk. I need to revise my will, and I want to establish a trust. His expression shifted from welcoming to attentive, the way good lawyers shift from gentleness to precision. Of course, we can take care of that. Do you want to tell me what prompted the change? I inhaled slowly. I am making decisions for my future, ones I should have made long ago. He nodded once, neither pressing nor pretending to understand more than he did. That was one of the reasons I trusted him. We began with the will. He listed current beneficiaries, and I listened. Then I spoke the changes plainly. Remove Daniel and Madison entirely. Leave everything to my granddaughter, Lily Ward. He hesitated, not with judgment, but with the concern of someone who had seen many families fracture over less. Is this what you truly want, Helen? It is what needs to be done. He accepted my answer with a slow nod, turning to his keyboard. We moved through each asset carefully, the house, my savings, pensions, investments. All of it would transfer into a trust managed by a professional trustee until Lily reached 25. After that, it would be hers to protect or squander as she chose. Not Daniel's, not Madison's. When we reached the investment accounts, Victor paused. He tapped a file on his screen and adjusted his glasses. I should tell you something. 2 months ago, Daniel contacted this office asking for initial information about power of attorney arrangements for you. The room seemed to cool around me. Power of attorney. So he could have access to everything, control everything, decide everything. He never mentioned that to me, I said softly. Victor exhaled. He did not file anything formal, but the inquiry was detailed. Enough that I assumed the two of you had discussed it. We had not. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The betrayal was not loud. It came quietly, like so many others before it. But this one cut differently. "Let's continue," I said finally. Victor drafted documents, sliding each one toward me with calm precision. With every signature, I felt something return to me. Not power, not revenge. Something quieter and far more valuable. My autonomy. When the final document was signed, Victor folded his hands. "Are you certain, Helen? This is a decisive step." I looked at him steadily. Decisive is exactly what I need right now. As I left the office, the sun cut through the clouds above downtown, sharp and bright. I walked to my car with a steadiness I had not felt in years. The future I had delayed was finally forming in front of me. And this time, it belonged entirely to me. By late afternoon, the calm I carried out of Victor's office began to tremble under the weight of approaching noise. I could feel it before I even turned onto my street. A pressure in the air. A tension that did not belong to the neighborhood. When I parked in my driveway, Daniel's SUV was already there, angled aggressively, as if he had arrived in a rush and never intended to stay long enough to correct himself. He was standing on my porch, fists pressed against his hips, chest rising and falling in short, angry breaths. Madison was beside him, arms crossed so tightly they seemed fused together, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. When I stepped out of my car, Daniel took 2 quick steps toward me. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." I closed the car door gently. "Talking," I said, "requires listening from both sides." Madison scoffed under her breath. "This is not the time for your lectures." I walked past them toward the house, unlocking the front door with deliberate calm. "If you wish to speak, you can come inside." They followed, though Madison moved as if she were entering enemy territory. Once the door closed, Daniel exploded with words he had clearly rehearsed. "You froze every card, every account. The mortgage payment bounced twice. The school called about Lily's tuition. The insurance lapsed. Do you understand the position you put us in?" I met his eyes. "Yes, I understand it perfectly." Madison's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. "Then fix it. Immediately." "No." The single syllable hung in the air like a held breath. Daniel stared at me, stunned. "What do you mean, no, I mean?" I said calmly. "I am no longer funding your life." Madison stepped forward, eyes blazing. "This is outrageous. We already spent next year's tuition assuming you would continue covering it. Do you have any idea how irresponsible this is?" The irony stung so deeply I almost laughed. Daniel tried again, this time more desperate than angry. "Mom, we are drowning. You cannot just walk away from us like this." "I am not walking away," I said softly. "I am stepping back to where I should have stood all along." Before Daniel could respond, the front door opened and closed quietly. Lily stepped into the living room, backpack still hanging off one shoulder. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with worry. "I told her to stay in the car," Madison snapped. Lily ignored her. "Grandma, can I talk to you?" "Of course," I said. She moved closer, voice trembling. "I heard Dad say he was going to look into options to sell your house if you kept resisting. He said once he had control of your accounts, it would be easy." The room shifted, as if every atom had suddenly rearranged itself. Daniel's face froze. Madison's expression cracked. I looked at Lily, whose eyes were filling with tears she fought to hide. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart," Madison sputtered. "That is not what we meant. She is twisting things." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He could not deny something said in the privacy of their own home. Something shifted inside me then. Not fear, not anger, simply truth. This is not about one dinner, I said quietly. This is about my safety, my independence, my life. Daniel's shoulders sagged, the first sign of defeat or awakening I had seen in years. I stood taller than I felt, and I will not surrender any of it. Not anymore. Night settled over the neighborhood with a soft heaviness, the kind that makes every sound feel magnified. I had just finished washing my cup from dinner when I noticed a shadow pass the living room window. Slow, hesitant, not Madison. Her anger never moved quietly. A moment later, there was a gentle knock at the door. I opened it to find Daniel standing alone on the porch. No fury this time, no pacing, no phone clenched in his hand. He looked smaller under the porch light, his hair slightly out of place, eyes tired in a way I had not seen since he was a boy afraid of thunderstorms. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk?" I stepped aside. "Come in." He walked into the living room slowly, as if unsure he still had the right. When he sat on the couch, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. His voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. I messed up. The simplicity of the admission surprised me more than any of his earlier anger. He continued, "I was angry because everything fell apart today. All at once. The cards, the bills, the business payment. I felt like I was losing control of everything. But when I got home and had time to think, I realized I haven't had control for a long time. I have just been depending on you to hold everything together." He shook his head, swallowing hard. "I didn't see it until Lily said she was scared for you. Scared of what we might do. That hurt, Mom. I didn't raise her to be afraid of me." I studied him quietly. His shoulders were trembling, not with rage, but with recognition. He went on, "I got used to you fixing things. Bills, emergencies, setbacks. I thought, that's what you did. That you didn't mind. That you wanted to help. Wanting to help is not the same as being used," I said gently. Daniel closed his eyes. "I know. I should have seen it. I should have paid attention. I should have been the one taking care of you." The words sat between us, raw and unfiltered. In all his adult years, he had never once acknowledged that truth. He lifted his head, eyes shining with something close to grief. "I never meant to hurt you. I just leaned on you so hard I forgot you were carrying weight, too." I sat beside him, leaving a respectful space between us. Love does not mean losing yourself, Daniel. It does not mean disappearing so others can stand taller. He let out a long, shaky breath. "I want to do better. I don't know how yet, but I want to start by actually listening, by being your son again. Not your burden." I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but openness. The first soft movement of healing after a long ache. We sat in the quiet living room for a long time. No accusations, no shouting. Just a mother and son rediscovering the part of themselves they had misplaced. When Daniel finally stood to leave, he paused at the door. "Thank you for giving me a chance to understand," he said quietly. I nodded. "Understanding is the first step. The rest is up to you." He offered a small, fragile smile, then walked into the night. The porch light followed him down the steps, illuminating the beginning of a path he would have to choose every day. And for the first time, he walked it alone. Dawn arrived gently, slipping across my bedroom floor in long, pale ribbons. I woke before the alarm, not from worry this time, but from a quiet sense of equilibrium that felt unfamiliar and wonderfully steady. For the first time in years, The early light did not feel like a reminder of unfinished obligations. It simply felt like morning. I brewed tea, listening to the soft hiss of the kettle, and opened the kitchen window just a little. A cool breeze drifted inside, carrying the distant sounds of a neighborhood waking up. A dog barked somewhere. A car engine turned over. The world carried on, uncomplicated, indifferent, free. My phone sat silent on the table. No frantic buzzing. No commands disguised as questions. No expectations waiting for me to meet them. The stillness felt like a room that had finally been cleared of clutter. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the warmth settle into my chest. Then the phone lit up with a message. It was from Lily. "Good morning, Grandma. I hope you slept well. I just wanted to say, I'm really proud of you." A small smile touched my lips. She had always been the one who saw me clearly, even when others only saw the version of me that made their lives easier. I typed back, "Thank you, sweetheart. You mean more to me than you know." A moment later, she replied, "Dad is trying. He talked to me last night. I think he really wants to change." I let those words rest inside me, not in blind hope, but in gentle acceptance. People change slowly, if at all, but intention is a beginning. The next message arrived half an hour later. "Daniel, Mom, I know I don't deserve your patience, but I wanted to say I'm sorry again. I won't ask for anything. I just hope someday we can rebuild what I damaged." There was no demand, no urgency, only humility. A rare thing in adults who have spent a lifetime depending on someone else's strength. I wrote back simply, "Thank you for your message. Take the time you need to grow. I will take mine too." After that, I set the phone aside and stepped outside onto the front porch. The sun had risen fully by then, soft gold brushing the tops of the houses. Yee. The city murmured awake around me, but for once I did not feel lost in its noise. I walked down the street slowly, each step grounding me more firmly into my own life. The sky above Los Angeles stretched clear and open, a reminder that even at 73, life can widen rather than narrow. As I reached the corner, I paused and let the breeze move through my hair. For years, I believed love meant giving until there was nothing left. I believed boundaries were unkind. I believed endurance was the same as loyalty. But standing there in the quiet morning, I finally understood something I had spent a lifetime overlooking. You do not owe anyone the pieces of yourself that keep you whole. Love is not sacrifice without limits. Love is not silence in the face of being diminished. Love is not disappearing so others can thrive. Real love, the kind that endures, begins with truth. And dignity is not something you fight for. It is something you stop giving away. As I turned back toward my home, I felt a peace settle over me, gentle and unmistakably mine. My life, at last, belonged to me again. In the end, I learned that dignity is not taken from us. We give it away piece by piece when we stay silent, when we carry too much, when we allow love to become a shadow of obligation. Reclaiming my life did not happen in one bold moment. It happened the day I finally understood that loving my family did not require losing myself. I walk forward now with a steadier heart, knowing that boundaries are not walls. They are doors we choose when we are ready to return to ourselves. At 73, I discovered something I wish I had known long ago. Peace arrives the moment you stop apologizing for needing it. Before you go, tell me, what lesson did you take from this story? And which city are you watching from?